Hey everyone, Phobos here, coming out with another build guide, and this time it's for the Unkillable Guardian support. Yep, that's right, totally unkillable. So, obviously not completely unkillable, but just looking to have fun with a video title here. This is for a Guardian support that I made basically to support my cousin who had a Molten Strike build before he died. You can see the rip on the channel. I think it's like one of the last videos I posted, at least relating to PoE. And I'm going to basically take you through, I'm going to first just kind of go out or make a statement about what I set out to do with this build, why it's a little bit different than other Guardian supports, some of the advantages, disadvantages, and then I'll go into the gear, and then probably the tree, and then the links. So, to start off, this is going to be different than other Guardians you see, as I don't run quite as many auras, and there's not as many purities in there. The idea was that we're going to make my cousin super tanky with a ton of armor and give him a bit of evasion from Grace. We're going to have haste all the time, and I think he was planning on running Vita, so that was where we're going to get Vitality, but Vitality is not really the best aura anyway, so I wouldn't have been heartbroken not having it. Currently this build runs, I know I said I was going to do the links later, but just for the purposes of the auras, we have haste, Grace, Determination, those are all in blood magic. Then we have hatred and anger, which are blasphemed, or not blasphemed, on generosity, so those don't affect me. They affect my cousin, and the anger obviously is good for the Molten Strike, and then he is using a like 300 DPS Fizz weapon, I think. So the hatred works in there as well. And then we have a clarity, and this is basically just to eat up extra mana or extra life, and I don't really need that, but I just run it anyway to eat up extra life to get more armor because of how Guardian works. And then I run a discipline for myself, and that pretty much finishes out the build. So we're not running purities, not running Vita, and those are the main things. Now you can obviously swap this around depending on your needs. You can also obviously put in like Wrath or something if you're supporting, let's say, like a Wander or something like that, or an Elemental Bow build. So there's a lot of different things you can do, obviously. I think especially if you end up getting an enchant on your helm that reduces the reservation cost of one of the 50% auras, then you can get away with a lot more in terms of running multiple purities, assuming you take out one of the DPS auras, because right now, if I were to take out Hatred, let's say I'm playing with my other cousin who's playing Freeze Pulse, and I take out Hatred because it doesn't benefit him, and he really doesn't benefit much from Wrath, so we're just giving him Anger, because he's Inquisitor, and he doesn't run much lightning damage, right? So we're just taking out Hatred. I put in a Herald of Ice, or not Herald of Ice, Purity of Ice. Now the problem is I'm losing ES from that, because my mana is going to be probably around like here instead of at 128. I'm going to have like a much higher percentage of my mana pool. So not going to have as much ES. Now that can still be worth it depending on what you're doing, like if you're just running a Tolls and you really want the cold resist for the boss or something. But if you were to do that and you had a 50% reduced, or a 15% reduced mana reservation enchant for one of the 50% auras, and you subbed out a 50 for a purity, which is 35, at that point you might be able to run 2 purities, which would be really nice, because not only are you getting 2 purities over 1, but you're also reducing your mana again to a very low value. I have to POB that. There's also other jewels you can use, like there's a jewel you can get from, I believe it's Act 8 or something, that reduces the mana reserved. So there are definitely ways you can fit in like multiple purities if you're willing to give up a DPS aura. You can fit in, if you're willing to give up a DPS aura and you don't even want to have multiple purities, you can just take less reservation from the tree, and that'll be nice because you save points from the tree, and you'll end up with the same, roughly the same percentage of reservation. You'll have to work all that out for yourself in Path of Building. But basically the idea is this build is not getting all the auras, but what it gives up in terms of auras, you get it up in terms of tankiness, right? Because you do get a decent amount of armor just from, or is it just from Guardian alone? Need to bring up Guardian here. You do get a decent amount of armor just from Radiant Faith, but if you have the Memory Vault, which is the whole kind of core idea of this build, we just wanted to be really basically immune to physical damage and do lots of fun liches and stuff like that, and while progressing towards 100. So if you use the if you don't use the Memory Vault Helm, you have like, what is it, 6 to 8k armor or something, like decent amount of armor, but when you use the Memory Vault Helm, you just get like an insane amount of flat armor. Like obviously I'm getting basically like 4.1k flat armor from this helm, which is absolutely insane, and it just makes you insanely tanky. As you can see in our defenses, we're walking around with 35k armor, basically immune to most physical damage. On top of that, we're running the 7 auras, so from the Unwavering Faith node, we have 7% Fizz reduction. Then on top of that, we have the Basalt Flask, which is 15% Fizz reduction. Then we have Enduring Cry, which is super easy to keep up due to Prayer of Glory. It's even fine to keep up without it, but so that's an additional 12% Fizz reduction. So we're basically looking at like 34% Fizz reduction, completely unmitigated, and then tons of Fizz reduction via armor. You can even run a Chaos Golem if you needed more Fizz reduction, but I think it's pretty much overkill. Right now I'm running the Stone Golem. You can also use the Lightning Golem for the attack speed if you need more speed. So just tons of things you can do there. But yeah, basically the idea of this build is to build it around Memory Vault. And to do that, you have to get a bit more reservation, give up a couple auras probably, but I really like it, and it's really fun to just be completely immune to Fizz damage at all, even when your flasks aren't really up, and then when your flasks are up, you're like really immune. Like when your flasks are up, you can tank pretty much anything. So definitely a fun build, definitely lives up to the Unkillable name, and that's pretty much the premise of the whole build, to just give yourself lots of armor, make yourself super tanky, make it really hard to die. Now, going into the tree, I guess the main thing about the tree is that to make this work with the Memory Vault, you're taking a lot of reservation now. These are pretty standard. This is pretty standard. This is pretty standard, right? Now the main thing is like coming over here is not quite a standard, I feel like, but I had to do this in order to be able to make the build work. And doing this setup, it only takes a level 3 Enlighten basically to run our auras. Our Discipline is not enlightened, and our Blood Magic skills are not enlightened because they're on the Prism Guardian. I've seen other people use different shields as well. Prism Guardian obviously just makes getting more auras super easy, right? So if you're not going to use a Prism Guardian, you're just going to have less auras, because it's amazing, because not only does it give, so it gives pluses to the Socketed Gems, it gives 25% reduced mana reservation, it gives a ton of res, it gives 30 dex. On top of that, it gives actual blood magic, so that you're not getting the multiplier issue with blood magic, right? And then you throw clarity on your blood magic multiplier, which we have in here. We have just a normal blood magic support with the clarity. And the reason you do that is because clarity has such a low base mana cost that you can put a level 1 clarity in there with the blood magic and easily run it on your health from pretty much any setup. And then basically as you get more health, you just increase the level of the clarity to make it cost more and more life. And the reason why you want to drain your life is, again, for Radiant Faith, right? Because you get more armor when your life is being drained. So yeah, basically the thing about the notables in the tree is you have to get a lot of the reservation. I think the only reservation you're not getting is in the bottom part of the tree, so you're getting pretty much all the reservation on the top half. Obviously you're collecting as much ES as possible. You're getting Mind Over Matter, even though you don't really use Mind Over Matter, but you're just getting it for the mana buff. And then you're getting as many jewel slots as possible. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, hold on here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we have 5 jewel slots, and those you pretty much just want to stick in like ES mana jewels, and I have ES mana jewels, and then if you can get another stat that benefits you, cool. So like here I have a thing to help for your golem regen. It's actually really nice, especially if you're running Stone Golem, because this golem gets a ton of health. So this 0.4% is actually insane, and really helps the golem a lot. 27% armor if you haven't killed recently is amazing, because you're not doing any killing. Additional Fizz reduction against Abyss monsters with fire damage. This is a great jewel. Not that Abyss is going to be doing too much to you anyway, because you're just a monster, but the main thing, like I said, you're worrying about is energy shield mana and then resists. and the other stuff not so much. But so got some pretty good jewels here. The Void being stunned is never bad. Although being stunned typically isn't really a problem with this build, because for the Pantheon, you pretty much just take Soul of the Brine King, and then you swap it to this one if you want to have the Avoid projectiles that have chained mod to do chain maps. So yeah, that's pretty much the tree. Some things that I don't have here yet. You can get Dual Curse pretty easily. That's what I was working towards next. You can also get Essence Surge now. I feel like in a lot of cases, especially because I'm running like 3 disciplines, Essence Surge isn't as big of a deal, but it is really nice because with this you get like 1.8 second start on the energy shield recharge. I think it's 1.9 if you don't have shavs, so it's like 2 seconds flat, and then if you have shavs in this, it's like around 1.8. But it's really just the amount you recover when it starts that's the big thing, so that you don't need to be uninterrupted for as long to get a ton of ES back, obviously, right? I think this gives like 1.5k regen when you take this node, and when you combine it with the belt, it's pretty substantial for sure. So some nice regen there. The other thing I get is I don't have it spec'd right now because my cousin died and I was running with somebody else who doesn't really utilize EE, but LE Equilibrium can be really good. I was using Orb Storms to apply it and to apply curses, so it was actually really nice. My cousin was basically doing fire and cold damage, so I just had lightning damage from the EE, and basically EE is huge if you have somebody that can benefit from it, so definitely look into getting EE. And just make sure you supplement it with the appropriate element. The thing about EE is it can be sort of tricky. You want to always make sure after you take EE that you're actively looking for what you're penning on the monster, because a lot of times you can kind of acquire gear or jewels. In this case, not so much gear because most of the items are unique, but you can get some jewels that maybe add damage to your shield charge through attacks, or they add it to your spells. And it might be of a element that you don't want because it's going to cause problems with E. So just be cognizant of that when you're getting jewels and stuff like that. Conduit, the other thing I have here, is to share the power charges. And obviously just pick up mana where you can. Nodes like Void Barrier, Nullification, and Faith and Steel are really great because they all give res, which you desperately need on this build. Elementalist is also great. So yeah, that's pretty much where you get your res from the tree. I actually don't take the res from Allura. I take the 2 points because you can easily get res cap with the tree that I have here and the items. And you don't really need a ton of res on jewels. I have some res on jewels. Some of it's not even really needed if I swap gloves out. On gloves, you're probably going to need at least 1 resist. But other than that, you should be fine. So that's basically the tree, and then obviously the Ascendancy tree. The order I go is Radiant Faith, and the idea is while leveling, I always keep enough Mind Over Matter mana reserved so that it's like 30% of my health, and the rest of it I reserve to get some ES bonus. Then Unwavering Faith, or no, actually, sorry, then Time of Need is next, just for the regen and the curse reduction, and then I get Unwavering Faith after that, so that's Merklab, and then for Uber, Prayer of Glory. And you should be able to do all this pretty easily as long as you have somebody to help you. Like, obviously you can do, you're probably going to be leveling, I leveled as Frostbolt Totem, so you can do these two pretty easily yourself. And then Merklab, you're probably going to have transition, so you just need somebody to help you with that. The lab itself for you is very easy. You make the lab very easy for them, especially if you're running Vol Disciplines. And Merklab, or Uber Lab is basically the same thing. But if you don't have your trials complete yet, and you're kind of like wondering on which one to forego, I would definitely collect these 3 and then get this one last. This one's really nice, but just not really as needed as the other ones. So that's pretty much the tree. And then let's move on to the gear. So the gear, obviously, Memory Vault is the premier item here. And it's not that expensive to get like a mediocre or decent one. To get a really good one that's like 160, 200 with a good fire res roll is pretty hard. The mana regen roll is kind of irrelevant, and it's going to be irrelevant basically on all of our gear because we just have so much mana regen from having a high base pool that it doesn't really matter. And yeah, so just something to keep in mind there. So Memory Vault is the helm. Pretty much need that if you're going to do this version of the build. The Amulet is at Series Phobal. Now this is the budget option. Astral Menace is the more expensive option, but I think the late game best option is pretty much a Phobal with +1 curse. Now you can get an Astral Menace with +1 curse, but the problem is that it's really hard to get Astral Menace with +1 curse, right? You can actually buy these and corrupt these, and eventually I'll get probably a +1 curse. So that's what I've been doing. Haven't got it yet, but still using this for now. If you use an Astral Menace, your ES goes up because of the way Int works with ES. The ES you're providing to other people goes down because you're not getting quite as much mana. But you can just easily cover your attribute requirements. Like even with the Phobile here, you're going to have some attribute issues, even though it gives a 25% reduced attributes. So you end up taking, like, I have 2 strength nodes allocated, and I have 30 dex on my gloves. Doesn't need to be 30, but you're going to need some type of dex roll, most likely, on some piece of gear, and that's even accounting for the Prism Guardian. So, yeah, an Astral Menace just solves all those issues, and it gives you, like, let's say, 2 extra points for free, and then it gives you an easier time to get gloves, right? You don't need the same things. But yeah, so Astral Menace is like the more expensive option, but if you can't afford it, just put points in the tree and get the Phobal. And if you could also do stuff like, you could get maybe a belt that's not this belt if you don't really care too much for the 50% increased energy shield recharge rate. You can get like a crystal belt and try and put some strength on it, maybe mastercraft some strength, and then you wouldn't have to take one of these nodes. So you can do different things even without an Astral Menace, but an Astral Menace pretty much gets rid of all your problems. So just something to keep in mind there. The Shavs is completely unnecessary, but obviously gives you a nice boost. Like I think it gives you like around 2 to 2.5 KES. When I equipped it, I was like a 9 point something. I was actually 8.4, I think, and I equipped it and went to like 10k. So it just depends on obviously how much ES you have allocated and stuff like that. But Shavs is really great, not only for the ES, but for the lightning res, because it makes your res situation a bit easier. You don't need as much lightning res on gear. Like, you're pretty much going to need a lightning res roll, a major one on your gloves if you don't have Shavs. And you may need a lightning res jewel. So it's not really too bad, but, you know, like Lorca serves you just fine, especially for low-level content, but eventually you probably want to work towards a Shavs. If you're doing this on softcore, it's really easy to get a Shavs. Hardcore, it's a bit more expensive. Dream Fragments, now obviously just for the mana and the res, I just try and get as high of a res roll as I can because they're really cheap. Lori's Lantern, amazing just for the chaos res, light radius, movement speed, 20 all res basically when you have the perfect implicit. And obviously what we're using this for mainly is the while in low life enemies are unlucky damaging you, which is just a great stat to have. Using Rainbow Strides here because they're pretty fucking good. You can get better what do you call it, rare boots technically, but Rainbow Strides are a super good budget option. They even give you a bit of spell block, which sort of synergizes a bit with your roomies, and they're easy to kind of get with a decent lab enchant. Like these I actually enchanted myself, but you know, it's hard to get like a really GG pair of boots with a good lab enchant, but maybe you could find a pair of these that have the ES or the percent life regen recovered when you've been hit recently, which is really nice for this build. That's why I've been trying to get them. And obviously they give 60 mana with a ton of ES for having the mana roll, because it's hard to get movement speed. You obviously can't get like flat ES, mana, and movement speed because that's 4 suffixes. So they give a pretty good amount of ES for having mana and a good amount of movement speed. So just great boots overall. And you can use a Bright Beak if you want here, but I find that I don't really need it because normally my build partner, especially in this case, wasn't using a Bright Beak, so I just opted for the more ES from the Ephemeral Edge. And then Prism Guardian, like I said before, just amazing because it gives a ridiculous amount of res, 30 dex, gives you like everything you need, gives your auras levels, gives blood magic, and the reduced reservation. Just easily the best shield to make things easy for you. So yeah, that's pretty much it here. And then the Bated Breath is obviously for the 50% energy shield recharge, but you can always sub that out with a rare thing. That's pretty much the gear. And to go over the links, so like I said, I have anger and hatred on generosity. Now this is just going to depend on who you're supporting. And then I have haste, grace, and determination. Why do we run grace? Because grace is really great. It's a really good aura. It's just that in most cases, most builds have a aura that's like more pertinent and required for them to run, like either discipline or hatred or something like that, that gives them the freeze component or makes the build just do a lot more damage in general. So it's normally foregone on a lot of builds, but if you can get grace, it's amazing, because like I have so much evasion right now in this build. Let me show you that. I have 9k evasion from basically nothing, just from a bit of scaling from the tree and grace. And it helps so much because you just don't get hit often, and then when you do get hit, it's hit for a small amount, so it just adds another layer of defense. And anytime you can really get grace, you want to get it when you're not sacrificing too much, right? So I think grace is great personally. Determination and haste, obviously the other auras there. And then, so for this we have Vol Discipline, Blood Magic, Increased Duration, and Clarity. Now the idea here is just adding another Vol skill in with Increased Duration on a link that has Blood Magic and Clarity, because we want Blood Magic and Clarity to reduce our life as low as possible in order to get more armor. We don't really have that issue with the mana because of just how it works out. We're pretty much reserved almost all of our mana anyways, but with the way the life situation works out with the Archon Kite Shield is that you really can't run another aura. If you're going to run 3 auras in this, right, and I have 250% or I have 350% in this, and with all the reservation from the tree, we still have life left over because that's how crazy the shield is. And you can't really run another aura because you have to put it on a normal blood magic, and normal blood magic has a multiplier, so you pretty much have to run, or you can't run another percent aura. So you have to run a flat aura. And the great thing is you can just start with the level 1 clarity and the blood magic that has the penalty, obviously, and you just keep scaling up the clarity until you hit like a value where you're going to be 1 level on clarity away from, you know, not being able to reserve all your life. And don't worry too much, because you can't kill yourself by reserving your life through auras. Like if I were to level this clarity up again, what happens is that it just removes the clarity, so my life probably goes back to like, I don't know, whatever it would be without it. It goes up a bit, and you just have to deal with your clarity and stuff like that. The only thing that you can kill yourself with is if you put a skill that costs mana, like an active skill gem in there, or like a curse or something, and it's attached to blood magic, and then you cast the curse or that active skill, it will kill you if your health is low enough. So just always make sure. This is why I have this with the Vol skill, right? That's why there's no ambiguity here at all. It's just like, okay, this is my Vol skill and my clarity blood magic, and nothing else is going in there, and therefore it's impossible for me to die. So I never really swap anything out of there. I just keep that like that, because you don't want to be killing yourself for no reason. I think it's kind of dumb how that can happen anyways, but you know, it is what it is. So there's that aspect. In the gloves, I basically have Vol Discipline again, Increased Duration, and Vol Haste. Now, you don't have to run as many Vol Disciplines, and if you get Dual Curse, if I were to have Dual Curse in this situation, what I would probably just do is drop a Golem, because they're not really that great. Stone Golem only gives me like 100 and something regen, which isn't that great. But if I were trying to do Tri-Curse, I'd have to 5-link the Shavs, right? I'd have the Enfeeble and whatever the other 2 curses are. Wouldn't have the Golem in here on the Orbistorm's curse on hit. Now, that would force me to put one of these gems in the gloves, right? So it would either be Enduring Cry or Discipline. You need these both, obviously, because Enduring Cry activates your Ascendancy, and it's just good to have in general. And Discipline is, you know, obviously just amazing for you personally. So yeah, Discipline would probably go in here, and I just remove one of the Vol Disciplines. It's not really a big deal at all, but while I don't have that set up, you know, I just use 3 Vol Disciplines because it's broken as fuck. And you can, if you want, you can have like more Vol Hastes if you prefer to just go fast. Maybe you're playing softcore or something, but I just abuse the shit out of Vol Discipline. And in most situations, I can keep them rolling It sort of depends on who I'm playing with. Sometimes I like to use them more reactively if my partner gets more of a benefit from them, just depending on how fast we're going and stuff like that. But yeah, so kind of up to your discretion there. And then obviously just have shield charge in the weapon like usual, and that's pretty much all the links. And with that, I think I pretty much summed up the entire character. So if there's any questions or concerns, just let me know. Obviously get Zealot's Oath as well. Forgot to mention that earlier, I think. I mentioned Conduit. Like I said, there's budget options. Here's a Lorca. This is a budget option for your Astra Menace. And a budget option for boots. The only thing you really need is this and a decent pair of gloves with a decent amount of ES and lightning res. You don't even, to be honest, you don't even need much ES on your gloves because the build just gets so much ES. Like, it's just optimal to have more ES in your gloves, right? So the more ES you can get per slot, the better, but not really needed. And yeah, everything else is pretty much very cheap and easy to get, and you just get super tanky. I'm going to upload videos of me doing like liches and stuff and just standing in everything. I'm going to upload some gameplay footage of me just standing in everything, period. Just really fun. And yeah, you're just super tanky against all phys damage stuff, and then you have Vol Discipline. Like, I would just sit on top of the Atoll boss for fun. Just rolling Vol Discipline. You don't even need to roll Vol Discipline because it can't really kill you unless, like, it would have to do, like, you'd have to have, like, damage on the map, and then it would have to do the AoE with the wave with, like, the balls or something. Probably with damage on the map. And you need your Flasks to be down and stuff. And that's actually a good point. It's the last thing I'm going to talk about is the Flasks. So right now I basically have the Basalt and Granite set up. I have a Roomies just because you can. You don't have to have a Roomies. You can just use a normal Granite Flask. But if you can get a Roomies, it doesn't hurt to have extra block. Especially since you're getting some spell block anyway from your block. The extra Rainbow Strides. And when I boost these two up, I think I already did this, but you get to like 67k armor, 90 mitigation. So you're pretty much tanky as fuck. And then I have a Movement Speed Flask. And then I just have some warding flask and stuff. You can run an evasion flask here, or you don't have warding. I have like purity flasks. You can run an evasion flask, but there's not really a need. So I just run these elemental damage flasks because that's going to be the most likely thing to kill you. Basically, just run a warding, a movement speed with charge recovery, a bleeding flask, and a percentage armor flask. Now, the other thing you can do is if you want like more warding, you can sub out, like you could put a warding on your Basalt and then maybe run a Granite with the armor mod, and you'll pretty much have warding active all the time. You pretty much have it active all the time with this build, but like if you run 2 warding flasks, you'll just be pretty much guaranteed to have it up all the time. So it's kind of up to you with what you want to do there, but you get 25% curse reduction anyways, so usually not a huge deal. But anyways, that's pretty much the build. Thanks for watching. It's been a long one, I know, but there's a lot to go over with this build. And if you have any questions or anything, like I said, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'm going to be posting the demonstration videos soon. So thanks, and see you guys later.